Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Redefine Your Business Strategy with a Complete Financial Planning and Consolidation Tool. Thank you for taking time out and being here today with us. We have now posted our first poll question in the chat box. Have time to answer the poll by selecting your choice, then click Submit. So before we get started, I'm going to go through some housekeeping to ensure you can participate with us, especially to our speakers. Please place your microphone on mute to avoid background noises that may distract you from listening. And of course, since we would really love to hear from you, we also have an open chat feature enabled. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. Simply by clicking the button with the message icon, type your question into the chat box, then click Submit. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the later part of today's presentation. Third is we will be posting polls in the chat box. We invite you to please participate in the mini poll by selecting your choice, then click Submit. Lastly, we will be recording this webinar from start until the end of the session. We will send you a recorded version of this webinar once it was available. Oh, by the way, we have some exciting stuff for you. Get a chance to win Infosoft limited edition Moleskine notebook at the end of this webinar. Okay, now without further ado, I'll turn the time over to our first speaker, Miss Ivy Tarubago. Miss Ivy is a certified public accountant and one of the director of Infosoft Consulting Corporation. May we call on Miss Ivy to start her presentation.
So thank you, Jason, for that very brief intro. Take two. So as Jason mentioned, I am Ivy, and my background is in finance. And I've been with Infosoft for more than 15 years, doing a variety of tasks here and there. But one of my favorite is mostly on project implementation side. It's always been so satisfying to be able to lend a helping hand to organizations needing improvements in their processes. Again, good afternoon, everyone, and stick with us for the next 1 hour and a half to learn more about our solution for budgeting, financial consolidations, and reporting. And joining me this afternoon is my co-speaker. He's a gentleman who, for quite a long time, is that the correct description, right, Scott? Long time. Don't worry, I won't mention the exact number.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Okay, it's helping diverse organizations across Asia Pacific region overcome their pains in planning and consolidation. So, Channel Manager of Solver APAC, Mr. Scott Bennett. Take it away, Scott.
Thank you very much, Ivy, and the team at Infosoft for allowing us to participate today. I think Ivy summed it up really well there. I'm a channel manager for Solver Asia Pacific, working across the region, but of course spending a lot of time in the Philippines working with our premier partner, which is the team at Infosoft. So looking forward to talking to you guys today more about budgeting and consolidations, and along with Ivy showing you some of the features of the Solver application.
Right. Okay, so as a quick overview of our interesting topics this afternoon, I'm just going to turn on my video. As a quick overview of our interesting topics this afternoon, I'll do a very quick intro of who we are as Infosoft. And after that, we go directly to the main topics for this afternoon. First off is budgeting, to be handled by Scott. And I'll also share some insights on financial consolidation process. Then again, if you have any questions in mind, please don't hesitate to write it in the chat box and we'll answer during the Q&A portion. It's gonna be a full-packed afternoon, so without further ado, I'll start with discussing who we are. Okay, so we are Team Infosoft and we are a value-added reseller, and we have been in this business for 18 years and counting. We are based in Metro Manila and we have branches in Cebu and Davao to cater to clients around the Visayas and then Mindanao area. Our team of consultants are composed of project managers, functional consultants, and technical consultants. And with Infosoft, we strongly believe that the functional consultants should have finance background, which if you'll see, 40% of our functional consultants are actually CPAs, and the rest are graduates of any finance-related courses. We make sure that they are very competent and certified to provide technical expertise in every project delivery. So what are the solutions that we're offering? We have Acumatica. This is an integrated ERP, fully cloud ERP designed to help businesses across multiple industries automate key processes. So Acumatica is actually a game changer as it defies the convention on user licensing. This is an ERP that is truly unlimited users licensing. And we also have Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, before it's called NAV or NAV. It's a comprehensive business management solution for small to mid-sized organization. And for this afternoon, we'll be highlighting Solver. This is the only CPM solution that we carry. It provides a single cloud-based platform that automates small to large organizations' budgeting and forecasting processes, simple to complex reporting and consolidations from across organizations' data sources. And we also have RED, or real estate dimension. It is specifically designed to cater to the processes of real estate industry. So from sales and marketing down to financing and foreclosures to property management, Red Dimension can handle that. We also have LS1, which is for the lightweight, small to mid-sized businesses, and it's a point of sale solution with back office capability. So what we do, we offer project implementation, we offer customization integrations, and after implementation supports or service maintenance plans. So the next slide is that testament to how committed we are in delivering best-of-class solutions with high service quality. We have been recognized and consistently awarded by our principals.
And it's worth pointing out there, if I can just step in, Ivy,
Sure.
that Infosoft are our most experienced partner with the Solver application, having worked with it for a number of years and having a number of successful implementations across a variety of industries.
Right. Oh, okay. We work also with numerous clients across different industries. That's right, Scott. Such as the manufacturing industries or industry. We also have clients from distribution industry, from real estate construction industry. We also have from retail, specialty stores industry, and financial services, BPO, and other industry. And I would always like to end our company profile by saying that the key to our approach is the concept of looking at our clients as our business partners. And as business partners, we take it upon ourselves to support that your business is our business. Okay, so that's the end of my company profile. So for this webinar, we would like to talk more about the key challenges of multi-companies, of diversified companies, of conglomerates. Okay, so what you can see now is a typical conglomerate map. Okay, by definition, a conglomerate is a corporation that is made up of a number of different and sometimes unrelated businesses. And here you are seeing a typical conglomerate, and usually on top, you'll have the reporting parent company. Okay, and as a conglomerate, it has ventures on different businesses, as I've said. So it has, in my sample, it has commercial real estate, it has property development, and it has business ventures on power. And each of this business venture has a holding company, and each holding company will have its own operating subsidiaries. And adding to an already complex organizations are if you have mergers, if you have acquisitions that would yield your joint ventures, your wholly owned subsidiaries, or your minority interest. So from a reporting and from a budgeting and financial consolidation standpoint, this setup has a very complex and challenging requirement. So Scott, do you want to share your experience on the budgeting front?
Yeah, thanks, Ivy. So, look, some of the things that we find out there, and I have a suspicion that a lot of people on the call may be able to relate to this, is that a lot of budgeting and forecasting processes are taking place outside of your core finance and business systems. And we find a lot of the time that companies are typically very reliant on Excel when it comes to doing their advanced budgeting and forecasting. And as a lot of you may appreciate, that's very timely. It takes a huge admin overhead, and the results at the end of it can be suboptimal, to say the least. So typically, you're going to be exporting data out of your finance systems, which would be your actual information. You're then putting it into manual spreadsheet templates formatting those spreadsheets, and then typically emailing them out to the contributors across your organization. Of course, they're all going to contribute to those budgets in those independent Excel spreadsheets. They're going to send them back to the budget controller, and then the work starts again, because chances are there's a back and forth around issues with data integrity, performance, security. So you get those huge email threads back and forth. When you finally get them all right, you then have to consolidate them. So somebody within your organization potentially has to sit there and consolidate all of these different spreadsheets. And then when you get something like the current situation with the pandemic thrown into the mix, maybe at short notice, you need to go ahead and do a lot of reforecasting and what if analysis. And that becomes very, very difficult when you're using native Excel. So one of the things that we're going to show you and talk about today is how we can streamline and automate that whole process using something like the Solver application. But not only is Excel reliant, companies are reliant on Excel from budgeting and forecasting perspective, but also in regards to financial consolidations and doing all of that financial close process and reporting. And that's something I know Ivy wants to elaborate on a little further.
Yep. So on the financial consolidation part, okay, I've mentioned about the complexity in terms of structure, and we should also take note that there will be transactions between affiliated companies, between parent company and one of its subsidiaries, or between parent subsidiary. And most of the time, these multi-companies are using different ERP systems. So you have in your commercial real estate, they might be using Acumatica. In your property development, you might be using Microsoft Dynamics 365. Then because you just acquired the third operating subsidiary and it has a legacy SAP system, so it gets thrown in the mix. And then probably in your power, it's all SAP, and then Acumatica as a joint venture. And on your reporting holding company might be using NetSuite. So these are the key challenges based on the survey conducted by Deloitte on intercompany insights. And it actually says that there are three challenges for financial consolidations and reporting. And one of which was the one that I've mentioned a while ago, which is multiple ERPs across the organization. Having multiple ERPs would mean lack of visibility from corporate to subsidiary or between them. And so because there is a lack of visibility, then the tracing becomes so lengthy and tedious. And actually, according to the survey, this is a bit interesting again, intercompany is not viewed as a critical finance activity. And therefore, most of your ERPs in the market lacks this functionality. Okay. Another one is the manual processes. Because of using multiple ERPs, chances are you'll have different chart of accounts. You'll have different accounting processes across subsidiaries, which would lead to manual processing of your intercompany report consolidations through your good old Excel files. Okay, another one is as part of the key challenges for the financial consolidation is complex compliance reporting. So there is a need to be very flexible in designing your report according to different consumers. So a management report might be different from your BIR report or for Bureau of Internal Revenue report. It might be also different for your SEC reports or any other regulatory bodies. And there is the ever-changing need to redefine and restructure your reporting tree or reporting structure. And part of the survey is that they came up with an intercompany capability maturity model, which will determine where your organization stands in terms of your intercompany programs and processes. So in terms of maturity, your company would fall either on the low end, which is just developing, or towards the more advanced or leading. And it's interesting because it says that those who are in the leading classification has an integrated reporting or consolidation tool in place for their intercompany programs. Okay, so Scott, how will Solver help this kind of organization who are facing these challenges that we've discussed in our previous slides?
Yeah, thanks, Ivy. So yeah, this is a good time to discuss how everything fits together within the Solver application and how we address each of these challenges. So first things first, if you take a look at this slide that we just popped up on the screen, you can see that the central component within the Solver solution is this data warehouse. Okay, now Solver is what we call a CPM solution, and we love to throw out acronyms within the IT industry, but for people that don't know, that stands for Corporate Performance Management Solution. Okay, and as part of this, that data warehouse is really the central component because that's where we're going to store all of your enterprise-wide business data. Okay, but not only is it a place to store your data, it also has a full consolidations engine, which allows you to set up all of those rules around intercompany eliminations, minority ownership calculations, and multi-currency translation as well. So trading currency versus reporting currency, for instance. So if you think about your organizations today and all of the data that you work with, chances are you're working with data beyond your finance system. Okay, maybe a payroll solution or a third-party CRM product. Or as Ivy mentioned, if you're a conglomerate, maybe a lot of your entities are running different finance systems. So you'll be pleased to hear that as part of the Solver solution, we have a number of connectors, which allows us to very easily connect into your various data sources and bring all of that information into our environment, which as Ivy said, is in the cloud on a scheduled basis. So once we have all of that information residing within our pre-built data warehouse in the cloud, you can then report off it very easily using our reporting tool. Now, I think a lot of people on the call will be pleased to hear that we use Excel as the design layer. So all of the report building within Solver uses our add-in tool in conjunction with Excel. So if you're already a whiz with Excel today, which a lot of finance people typically are, you are 70% of the way there in terms of getting to grips with the Solver application and being self-sufficient in building your reports. Once you've created those reports, it is only people designing that use Excel. Everyone else consumes those reports via our modern web environment, which can be accessed across any device and any browser. So once that report is created, you can set up whatever drill down, drill through, report parameters, trees, whatever you want as part of that report. Once it's designed, you can then distribute it accordingly via the web environment. Okay, and there's lots of you can get pretty granular on security and lock certain things down if certain people are only supposed to see entity A, B, and others C, D, or various cost centers. So there's lots of things you can do in terms of the security aspect. So that's reporting, but then we move on to planning, budgeting, forecasting. So you can create any report, we know that. You can also create any type of budget and forecast input form, okay? And as you've probably guessed, all of that information is stored back into the data warehouse. So if you picture the scene whereby you have all of your actuals residing in that data warehouse, now you have all of your budget and forecast information. You imagine the possibilities that you can do in terms of your reporting and your scenario planning and what if analysis. And because we're doing it that way, you can store an unlimited number of versions easily within the data warehouse. So even though we use Excel as the design layer, we're never storing anything in Excel. The magic here is having it all within this structured Azure SQL data warehouse. And there's lots of things we can do in terms of managing the whole workflow and systemizing that budgeting process, which we're going to show you today. Finally, whilst you can build dashboards into your formatted financial and operational reporting, if you want to go a step further with advanced visualizations and interactive dashboards, we have a plugin which allows us to very easily plug your structured data warehouse environment into Power BI. So you can even take it to another level from a visualization point of view as well. Okay, now a little bit of background about Solver. I'm going to be very quick. All of this stuff is available online, and I know Ivy and her team at Infosoft will make it available to you if it's of interest. But very quickly, for those that haven't heard of us before, we've been around for over 20 years, offices across the globe. Little bit of history, but not too much. We were involved in the developing 2 products prior to Solver. One of those was a solution called Enterprise Reporting a number of years back. That was ultimately acquired by Microsoft. We then followed that up with a sequel, which was a product called Excel Reporter, which was acquired by SAP. So our credentials in the industry are very strong. Don't take my word for it. You'll see us as a leader within the Gartner Magic Quadrant for CPM tools. And even more importantly, if you go to the G2 platform, which is based on verified user reviews, you'll get a good view of exactly how we fit and what our customers think of us. And you'll find us a leader in those quadrants. Okay, thank you guys. And on that note, yeah, that's a nice prompt there. I almost skipped ahead.
Okay. You still have one slide before you do the demo.
Yeah, you see, I'm excited. I want to get into the product. But this is an important slide because it shows that the product, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. We don't work with one industry any better than another, right? We have over 3,000 customers globally across all industries. So you can see, very similar to the team at Infosoft, you can see we've got distribution, manufacturing, financial services, pretty much across the board. Okay. And on that note, and I think this is my correct cue.
This is your correct cue, yeah.
Yes, okay. On that note, I will share my screen and we'll get into the product itself. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Oh, yes, yes.
Yay.
No.
Okay, yeah. You had me worried there for a moment. Okay. So I am now logged in to the Solver environment, and you can see that I'm accessing it just through a standard web browser. For transparency purposes, I'm using Firefox. But as I mentioned earlier, you can access this solution across any browser, any device. It is hosted on Azure, and we have data centers across the globe, and it is a true public cloud solution. So important to a lot of you, I know, are our compliance and certifications, as you would expect. This meets all of the relevant certifications like SOC 2 compliance, etc., and we make all of that information available on request. So the first thing you'll notice here is down the left-hand side of my environment, I have a number of options available to me. Right? You can see I've got live reporting, I've got budgeting, workflow, and I have some administration settings as well. So I'm playing every role in this environment, so you can see that I have all of these menu options. But just to give you an idea, if you had someone within your organization that was just contributing to budgets, all they're going to see is home and assignments. If it's someone that's just an executive that's consuming reports, they're just going to see home and live reporting. So we strip this modern interface back to make it as easy as possible to get to grips with. Okay. So first things first, before we get into budgeting, I'm just going to show you how this fits together. So you'll notice here I have live reporting. So if I click on live reporting, you'll see that there is a host of reports that are available to me within my environment. So you can see I've got profit and loss, cash flow reports, consolidated reports, you know, too many to go through, all available to me. And as I mentioned from the outset, you can create any type of report within this environment, assuming we have the data coming into the data warehouse. So any type of report, and it can look and feel however you want it to. So all of that formatting, formulation, and design that you used to in Excel carries through into the Solver environment. So for instance, I know a lot of you have probably got specific compliance reporting that you need to do, and it needs to be formatted and look a certain way. This gives you that flexibility. So you'll notice I've got all my reports, and down the left-hand side, I have all of these different categories and folders, which I've created. And you'll notice I've got ones that says Scott's reports, which includes a number of reports that I'll typically access. And what I'll do just to kick things off is open up this very simple profit and loss report. That's a very clean looking, simple report. Nothing too amazing about this, but it's a good place to get things started. So you can see I have my report here with all of my revenue, expenses. I've got my actuals coming through. I've got some budget information. I've got some advanced grouping functionality that I'm taking advantage of, which if you use Excel a lot, you'll be familiar with. And you'll notice I've also set up some drill downs on some of these numbers. So I can drill all the way into the general ledger detail if I want to. Have a look to see what sits behind that 540 number. But importantly, what you'll see at the top here is these parameters. I only have 3 parameters on this report, but you can create any type of parameter that you choose. So you'll notice if I click entity, I can run this report for Australia, Canada, Singapore, or multiple entities. I can choose what financial period I want to run this report for. And importantly, I can choose what scenario. So the current situation right now, you may have a number of different forecast versions set up within Solver. You may have worst case, realistic, best case. I can go ahead and using the scenario planning feature, and I can run this report based on a variety of those scenarios to see how that affects all of my numbers. Okay, and we'll come on to that a little bit more in a moment, but you can kind of start to see the power of having actuals and budget information stored securely within this environment. So here's my report. I can do lots of cool things here. I can export it as a static Excel spreadsheet, download it as a PDF. Importantly, I can comment on it, so I can create an unlimited number of comment templates within the Solver environment. So you can come ahead, go ahead here, and those comments are auditable. So, you know, user stamps, date, time, etc., and they're all stored securely back to the data warehouse. Importantly, these comments stay with this specific version of the report, so you can always go back to them. So that full collaboration is encouraged within the Solver environment. But the big question, of course, is you've heard me talk about Excel as a design layer. If I am a financial controller, how do I build this report? How do I edit it? What if somebody comes back to me and says, I don't like the way this report looks, can you change it? Well, assuming you are a power user and you have the security, you can just click edit from within the Solver portal environment. And what you'll see is that Excel will be launched automatically. It will kick in the Solver add-in, and it will present me with this report in its raw Excel format. So you recognize that report already, I'm sure. And you'll notice, I'll close this layout editor because I don't need it right now, but you'll notice I'm in Excel. It'll look familiar to everyone, but also a little different because I have this Solver reporting menu option at the top, and I have this down the left-hand side here, which is all of data. So think about this. Think about how you're doing it today. Well, because I'm accessing my data warehouse here, I have all of my general ledger information, which may be coming out of Dynamics, Acumatica, or any other data source. I have a third-party payroll information coming in here. I have some CRM information coming in here. And when I build this report, I can just click on my general ledger module, open that up. I can see all the dimensions, count, category, etc. Under the dimensions are all the attributes. A lot of you on the call will be very familiar with this type of data structure. So I can take a count, drag it into B20. I can take a count description, drag it into C20. I'm dragging in some budget information. Okay, these are just standard variance formulas. You'll see that. Okay, and the formatting and design is all Excel based. And I've got some things like in here like predefined period functions and lots of other things to make things easier. And you know, we can always get on into more detail on that with Ivy and her team if you guys are interested for a one-on-one session. But you can see how this report started to take shape. So if somebody's not happy with this and we need to make an edit, I can simply come in here and I can say, oh, maybe they didn't like the color of that. Maybe it's not in line with the branding. Okay, I'll change it to green. I can go into the Run tab within Excel. It's remembered the parameters that I selected in the web. I can go ahead and run it. It's going to go out. It's going to find the latest version of that information for me. And remember, your data is synchronized with the environment, depending on how often you want that to happen. So it's going to go ahead. It's going to get that information, and it's going to say, right, there you are. There's all my information. It's updated my graphs, etc. So I can now just go into the Design tab and say, yeah, I'm happy with it. And I just hit Save. And it tells me instantly it's been uploaded. So I close Excel, and you'll notice in my web environment, it's already picked up the changes. I can rerun my report. And any changes that I made to that report are now available to me within the web environment. Okay, so you'll see now, and I'll wait for the screen share to catch up, but you will see that that green color, which was a very simple change, has come across. I can go ahead, publish the report, and I can say, yep, great. I'm now going to share this with the team. I'm going to share it with Archie, Bud, Joanne, etc. Now, when I share that, I can set the system up so that it automatically sends those guys an email and it says, Scott just shared this profit and loss report with you. Click this link. When they click the link, it will prompt them for their security details. Okay, and you can use your Active Directory Microsoft credentials as well if you're already using Microsoft services. And we also support multi-factor authentication. It will then take them straight into that report, and they will only be able to view the information that they're supposed to. Okay, so that's a very quick overview in terms of how it knits together your data, the design layer, and the distribution. Okay, and on that note, I'm going to jump over into budgeting, and I'm going to set up a workflow and show you some of the things that we can do around budgeting and forecasting. All right, so where was I? Budgeting. So as with the reporting menu, you can now see all of my budget and forecast forms available to me, and we can create any type of budget or forecast form. So if you have something you're doing today and the data you're capturing and the look and feel of that form, we can replicate it within the Solver environment. So here are all my forms, and as I mentioned, CapEx, top-down, etc., all available to me. So I want to start a budget workflow process. So rather than email stuff out and do the Excel thing, I'm going to set up a workflow within the Solver web environment. And it's going to be my corporate budget 2020, probably a bit late, but you get the idea, 21. And I'm going to say that I want this to start on the 4th of January. And I want everyone to have their budgets and forecasts completed by the 31st. And you know what? When they get submitted, I want Joanne to review them. And if she's happy with everything, I then want Archie to approve. And as part of this corporate budget, it's going to include my CapEx, right? It's going to include my expenses and maybe a few other things as well. All right. And it's going to say to me, do you want to let the users change any parameters, or do you just want to keep it really simple and fix it? Where this might come in handy is if you have a user that is entering budget or forecast information for multiple departments, at which point you'll want them to be able to change and select a different department for entering budget forecast info. You then determine who is on this workflow. You go ahead, save and publish. And what will happen on the 4th of Jan, an email will be sent out to say, hey, budget season starting, everyone get your budgets entered. And when they click through, and I'm now going to move from a budget controller role into a contributor role. So once they get that email through, they'll go into their assignments. And you'll notice I have lots of assignments because I'm playing every role. But you'll know I've got some in progress, some to approve, and some completed. So to start things off, we'll do a very simple expenses form. And by the way, I'm showing you a lot of things here today, but this is a module-based solution. So you don't have to do everything from day one. Maybe you just don't want to do your simple financial reports initially and look at the other stuff down the track. That's fine. You don't have to do everything in one go. We're just giving you a bit of a taster here. So here is my expenses form. Very simple, but you'll notice anything in yellow, that's an input cell. I can change it. Anything not yellow, I can't change. And you'll notice I've got actuals coming in as well. So I can just come in here if I want to. I can start entering my data as you normally would. And I can also do things like drag that across 12-month period from within this web environment. But when I come into travel, which is a terrible example right now, but hopefully you guys will forgive me for this. But if we go into the travel account and I click here, you'll see I have a whole host of other options. And I have a suspicion a lot of you on the call may appreciate some of these features here. So now within the travel account, and again, apologies, it is a really bad example, but you can create as much line item detail as you want. So you could say Sydney flights, right? And you could say it's going to be 4,000 in Jan, and over in June, it's going to be 5,000, right? And then you could come over here and you could say Thailand flights. Right? Yeah, my spelling's really bad. You get the idea. But on this one, in fact, I will just clean that up because it. There we go. That's my screen. So if I go into spread amount you can see on this occasion, if I wanted to, I can say I'm going to take 18,000 and I can have this spread across that 12-month period. All right. So I could say I want it to spread based on last year's actuals. And you'll notice last year's actuals are now highlighted. And now I could say, yep, spread the 18 based on last year's actuals, adjust it by 10%. Maybe I could even offset a few months. The COVID situation, right? Maybe I want to offset Jan, Feb, March. Well, I can do that very easily within this environment. And I can also create my own distribution rules as well. You guys have all got unique elements of your business. You notice I've got summer and winter here. You know, if you're in the retail space as an example. Or what you could do is you could just say, you know what, I want to just spread it evenly across that 12-month period. And that'll go ahead and spread it evenly for me. And you can see it's rolled up at the account level. The red indicator is telling me there is underlying detail sitting behind this number. Okay. And also if I come in here, I can make as much line item commentary as I want to. At which point you'll notice the red indicator now appears in the line item telling me this commentary. I can build in department comments as well within the forms themselves. And I also have a full activity log. Again, one of the challenges is you go forward a year or two, you need to go back to see a discussion around something. You find yourself trying to cobble together Excel spreadsheets, search for emails. It's a nightmare. Everything here is auditable, user date, timestamped. You can search it based on keywords, based on what stage the workflow was at, etc. So as I'm going through this, if I finish this, I can save it, stores my data back to the warehouse. That means I can come back to it later and make changes. But if I do a complete assignment, that means I can't change it, and an email notification will go to the reviewer to say, hey, I've finished it. They now need to review it. If they reject it, they can put comments as to why, and I will get an email back saying it's been rejected, and then I can start the process again. So you get the idea of how the workflow all factors into the whole systemized approach to this budgeting and forecasting. So on that note, and in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly jump over to back into budgeting. I'm going to continue with the corporate budgeting process. So one of the things that's driving all of these forms is something that we call assumptions or driver forms. Okay, and you can set up an unlimited number of assumption driver templates within the environment. So this form here that I have is driving about 4 or 5 different budget and forecast forms. So you can see I've got payroll tax assumptions, capital life assumptions, days per month, travel assumptions. So these are just going to flow on to make that whole process easier. So you'll see how that comes into play in a minute when I open up this CapEx budget. So again, imagine we've gone through that workflow process, the budget controller has sent it out, and I now need to go ahead. And this is just another example template. Again, it's up to you how these look and feel and what data you capture. But let's say I want to buy some computers in this example. It's going to be for the human resources department, and it's HP laptops. Okay. Automatically, it's going to default to the lifespan of that asset for me. Okay, I'm going to say February. I'm going to say they're 3,000 expensive laptops, and I'm going to buy 4 of them. Okay, so this is going to work out. We've already established it's worked out the lifespan of the asset, but it's also going to work out my CapEx and depreciation for me. And that's all based off the back of those assumptions. So you can see that moving along now in the budget form. So you can have your contributors going ahead and completing that part of the process. And again, that can go out to multiple people, multiple departments, etc. It's just a configuration process. Okay, and then another example, as we're working through this, the pandemic's just hit, we maybe need to look at reforecasting for the business. So we may want to look at a top-down approach. So what I'm opening here is a top-down template to give you guys an example. And what you can see here within this environment is that I've got my revenue accounts here. I've got my cost of sales, and I've got all my departmental expenses in here, okay, which are all coming in from my finance system. And then I have some year-to-date actuals for Jan and Feb. And then I have nothing so far for any of the remaining months of 2021. We're going forward in time because obviously this is demo data. But I could say, yeah, you know what? My desired net income is $1 million bucks, okay? And you can see that straight away within this environment, it is now giving me my year-to-date actuals and populated out the rest of my forecast based on historical trends. Have that, I can then expand here and I could say, well, you know what, that's great, but we're probably going to have an increase 5% in finance overheads. It's probably going to be another 5% in sales and marketing overheads as well. And you can see as you scroll down that these adjustments have been applied. Now, the question you're probably thinking is, why is this 7.10? Well, the answer to that is that it is taking not only my department increases, but I can also do organization-wide or global operating expense updates. So you can see I've got 2% here and I've got 5 there for sales and marketing. So you can build out all of these. So if I take that out as just to show you guys, you can see it's now 5%. So as I work through this whole process, you can store as many versions of this as you want, build dashboards off the back of this. You can build a host of reports off the back of it. You have that facility available to you. So very quickly then, as you're working through the corporate budget, you will get to this, and we're obviously rushing through this in terms of in the interest of time, and there's obviously other elements, cash flow, budgeting, etc., all that are all going to play a part in this. But at this point, you might have it ready, and you might want to put the presentation together for the board. So you can come in here and create a new publisher job, and you could say this is the corporate budget 2020-21. Okay, it's the presentation for execs, and included in this package for these guys is balance sheet. We've got you know, budget accuracy analysis, etc., etc. And you can send that by roles. You may have an executive role set up, or you can do it by user. Okay. And you can have this sent to their email, or better, you can have it sent to their archive. I'm going to show you that in a second. And you can say, I want this to go out every month, and I want it to go out on the last day. You go ahead and you publish it. As an executive, I now get an email and saying on the specific day saying, hey, your budget presentation's available. I go into my archive, open up my playlists. Now we have this playlist functionality in Solver, really useful, not as exciting as playlists in Netflix, I have to admit, but it's probably more productive. So you can see within this playlist here, I have all these presentations. So I can go into my budget presentation as an executive, and I can now say, yep, I want to look at this. So I go into my table of contents, and within my playlist, it tells me everything that is included within this budget presentation. And of course, this can all be designed in line with your formatting standards, branding, design, you know, logos, graphics, whatever you need. And you can see I've got my table of contents, and then I can go through and I can say, yeah, let's have a look. What were the strategic goals of this process? Okay, right, how we go get it. Now I want to see the balance sheet budget. Okay, now I want to see the cash flow. Yeah, and you can include all of the supporting material within this environment so that every month the information is getting sent out. And this is a corporate budget, but it could be anything. It could be, you know, your financial close. And I know Ivy's going to talk about this in a minute with consolidations and a consolidation presentation. So all of this can be included, and you can even give them the facility to drill down within this environment as well. So they can drill down on some of these numbers if it's appropriate, which makes the whole thing much more interactive. If you are using a boilerplate PowerPoint presentation or Word document as standard, you can even embed Solver links into those presentations so that when you open them up, it will ask you if you want to upload those links and populate your PowerPoint or Word with the latest version of these reports. Okay, that's something else that you can do as part of this process. And that's before we even get on to talking about an auto narrative, where it will automatically transpose the data for you and provide a narrative. And on that note, Ivy, that may be a good time for you to take on the financial consolidation side of the Solver solution.
Okay, sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen as well. Okay. So can anyone confirm if you can see my screen now? Right. I'm seeing the homepage of Solver.
That's correct.
All right. Okay.
You got you.
So Scott had already presented about the budgeting. Now I'm going to present the financial consolidation part. And for this afternoon, I'll be using Process Manager. This is a new addition to Solver functionality, and it's so nifty. It's all in there. and you can organize all of the tasks that you need to do for a certain process. You can assign it to someone. You can specify the dates of deadlines for them to accomplish those tasks. So also apart from that, I'll just show you a simple example. You can actually put in hyperlinks in your process manager. So you can insert, for example, this is your task. You have to enter an entity consolidation and minority interest trees. Then you can put in the link of a certain report or budget templates within Solver. Or if you have any other materials that is available over the net, say for instance, additional readings for IFRS or GAAP or SEC pronouncements, then you can actually put in a link of that website and then be added to your process managers. And then another good thing is that for all of the users of Teams, Microsoft Teams, documents that are within your Microsoft Teams environment can be also linked into your process manager. So for the purpose of this demo, I will be using my demo data. And all of the reports and input forms can be created and designed according to your unique intercompany programs. So for this demo, I will be doing the financial consolidation process, and it's just 5 simple steps. First is you update your hierarchy. Next is you put in your adjustments or your elimination entries, your top-down adjustments. And then after that, you have to, of course, revalue your consolidated financial statements using a specified reporting currency. And then you go ahead and then do your intercompany eliminations. And if you have minority interests, you can recognize those minority interests using the equity method recognition. Okay, so let me start my financial console process with updating the hierarchies. So when I click on the process of updating hierarchies, I have 2 tasks. First is we have to enter the entity consolidation and then the minority interest trees. If I click on the link, it will direct me to the data warehouse of Solver. And then if you click on entity, so for instance, this demo, I have a change in minority interest, okay? And I have to add in another company where we have a little stake on. So it kind of will change the organizational roll-up from one period to the next. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go ahead and add that new company under the property development. Now, once I've added this one, then you can use this tree to generate reports or to generate your financial consolidation reports indicating the new company that you just acquired. Okay, so the consolidation tree, by the way, just an FYI, you have 2 kinds of trees in Solver. You have your consolidation tree. Now, the consolidation tree tracks which entities are included in the reports on a consolidated basis. While the minority trees, okay, this one, the minority trees, this one will, it will track the percentage of ownership. So take notice that in corporate Asia, when you click on the node properties, it says 80% ownership. And by definition, 80% is not minority interest. But if you wanted to include your minority interests companies, then you can put it, you can put your stake in your percentage ownership here in your node properties. So again, you have minority trees and also your consolidation trees. So entities which are included in the consolidated financials on an equity basis will be included in the minority trees, but not the consolidation trees. And also, there is a very, as I made mention a while ago, that one of the challenges for conglomerates is that there is always a need to be flexible when it comes to reporting structure. So, for example, this year, or for example, this period, you'd be reporting on this kind of structure. Then, what if next time you'd want the management wants this bottom line realty be under property development? You can just drag and drop this members, and then it will already reflect in your reports when you generate those consolidated financial statements. Okay, so now I'm done with my updating of hierarchies or updating of my trees. I will go on with my next task, which is to adjust some of the elimination entries or some of the adjustments that I need to Okay, first off is because I am a company from the US, and US company will follow GAAP rules, but then we have to adjust everything via or through IFRS rulings. So and because I need to take additional depreciation expense, it's just loading a bit. Okay, so and because I need to take on additional depreciation expense in compliance with IFRS, I can just go ahead and then put in negative 500 here. Negative 500 would mean that it's a net zero revenue, which means it's like a loss. So then I can put in adjustments for, say, depreciation. Okay. So as Scott has mentioned earlier, all of those that are in yellow, you can actually modify it, or you can enter something into it, and you can design all of your input forms depends on your process of your intercompany eliminations. I'm okay with the inventory valuation, and I'll just have to save this data. And what it does it will write to the data warehouse so that when you get the consolidated report, it's already part of your reports. Okay. Then next off is I'm gonna do my top side adjustments. Okay. Now the top side of adjustments are journal entry that is adjusted or that are made by the parent company in the accounting sheets of its subsidiary. So during the preparation of the consolidated financial statements, this top side entries needs to be done because it will sort of allocate certain amount of expenses, or it will determine the allocation rate for the whole subsidiary and parent reporting. Some companies record top side entries on a separate spreadsheet, but other would incorporate adjustments into their ERPs or financial records at a later time. So I'm just using the budget input form or the input form in native solver. So I can go ahead and then put in any adjusting entries that I need. And this is mapped out to your chart of accounts. And okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and say I need to do an additional record for other current assets, and then I'm gonna park it under, say, corporate US, and then it automatically plugs in the reporting currency for that entity, and then I can put in the amounts of how much will the adjustments be. Okay, so far so good, I guess. So after that, so I'm done with my top-down adjustments. I'm done with my IFRS adjustments. Now what I'm gonna do is process. Okay, let me just close this. Okay. Right. So what I'm going to do now is to process my currency translations. Okay. It's very important when you do consolidations to have a standard currency or reporting currency. So these are the simple tasks that are involved in any currency translations. First off is you have to update your retained earnings rate. So in this demo data, it samples a report. Okay, let's just wait for it. Okay, it calculates the required currency translation rate for the retained earnings opening balance, or the OBA rate. Okay, and this one will be the exchange rate that will be used for the opening retained earnings for the next fiscal year. So if you'll notice, this is just pulling data from your from the data that came from your ERPs, and then separated on a per period basis. So you don't need to recompute it if you have a certain report like this. Then I'm gonna go ahead and go to adjusting historical rates. So we've done retained earnings rates. Now we have to either do a manual historical rates, or you can do a report that will pull up all of the historical rates within your data warehouse. I'm just gonna click on the historical rates, and you will be able to see that this is the report, okay, that calculates required periodic currency translation rate for accounts that require historical rate reporting. So for this sample, I am using a common stock account. So these are the transactions parked under common stock, and I came up with a periodic historical rate based on the rate of the total of the USD common stock, and then divided by the Canadian dollars. So it's an automatic thing if you wanted to design a report where you'd be able to get periodic historical rates. But you can also, if you have your own way of doing, or you have your own way of recording your historical rate, you can go ahead and enter your historical rate. You just go to the manual historical rates, and it will lead you to the currency maintenance in your data warehouse. So what it does is it will enumerate all of the rates for each of the currencies. So you'll notice that USD doesn't have any translation rate, because this is the reporting rate being used by this demo database. So anything that you need to, any local currency that you need to adjust, you just have to encode it in here. So you just plug in. So you can actually do a manual updating, or you can just import it to your data warehouse through certain integrations via CSVs or via Excel files, right? So after that, so we've already done our historical rates. We've already done our retained earnings rate. The next step to do is to actually run the elimination and to run the currency rules, okay? So in Solver, there is a specific task, or there is a specific rule that automates the generation of foreign currency transactions. And what it does is it aggregates all of the transaction details at the month level and generate new transactions using the reporting currency. So if for instance, you have an accounts receivable coming from your ERP using the functional currency, what Solver will do is it will replicate that exact account and that exact entry with the reporting rate in Solver, so that in the consolidation report, they'd be able to separate those that are for reporting currency and those that are for functional currency that is coming from your ERP databases. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with adjusting the historical rates and the retained earnings rate. So as an accountant, this one is, I think we all know that before you actually finalize your financial statements, you have to validate your trial balance, and that's why it's called trial balance, FYI, because you have to make sure that all of your debits would equal to your credits, and that down below it has to be zero. Okay, what we want is for us to be able to come up with a reporting currency. So in this report, the purpose of this report is to validate. Well, trial balances would validate the reporting currency translation is in balance prior to running your financial statements, right? So it has actually 4 measures. First measure is the functional currency, which comes from the amounts in your ERP. And next is your reporting currency using the GAAP rules. And next is your reporting currency, which is based off from your rates in your data warehouse. And finally, you have your amount that is accumulated currency translation adjustments associated with each account. So you should make sure as an accountant or as a financial controller that your reporting currency should yield a 0 footing in here before you actually generate your financial statements. So going back to my process, I'm pretty much done with the currency translation. Now what I'm going to do is the intercompany elimination entries. Okay, I'm just going to click on it, and these are just 3 steps. Okay, now before I've discussed about currency translation, now I'm going to discuss a certain rule, okay, which is built in Solver, which is responsible for the intercompany elimination, this one, and the minority elimination rule. So the intercompany elimination rule, or this intercompany elimination translation, this rule will use the consolidation tree that was shown earlier in the demo to automatically generate intercompany elimination transactions. Another one is the minority elimination rule. This one, it creates the minority interest transactions based on the user-defined person ownership we defined a while ago. Okay, so these rules, currency translation, minority eliminations, and then intercompany elimination rules is or can be run on demand, or it can be scheduled automatically to run. It's just similar to your jobs if you're familiar with SQL. Okay, so I'm done explaining with the rules. Then I'm gonna go ahead and I think this one is the most exciting part for the financial controllers, because this one is a report, it's a working paper that validates intercompany eliminations are balanced before finalizing again your FS. So you will notice that this report will display periodic intercompany balances based on the relationships between your offsetting accounts. So offsetting accounts in Solver, it's called offsetting accounts, but in accounting parlance, it's the due from accounts. So this report, the balances of this report shows the relationship between your due from accounts, between your entities, and then your corresponding entities. So entity in Solver is your originating company, and then your corresponding entity in Solver is your destination company. Okay, so in this sample, the intercompany transaction is balanced. So it shows that the intercompany receivable from one entity will be displayed against the intercompany payable of the corresponding entity. So this is just a sample. So SAS company has an intercompany receivables entry, and then it will be recorded as an intercompany payables in SUS company. And on a very, very, very ideal scenario, your intercompany accounts and amounts would be balanced. But in case there are differences, then you can take it up. Either you go to your ERP, adjust it in your ERP, or you can temporarily park it under an other liabilities account, or you can just adjust your report and then show it somewhere there. Okay, so in a very ideal scenario, as I said, there will be no difference here. Okay, but this report, if you're doing intercompany consolidations and intercompany elimination, is very useful to audit if certain amounts and accounts are disbalanced or offsetting accounts are disbalanced. Okay, now I'm done with intercompany matching report. I said, oh, there's no difference. I can go ahead and post balancing entries if needed. So, but then I don't have any difference. So I'm not going to post anything in here. But if in case there are any adjustments, then you can also use the same adjustment entry form that we used a while ago to store all of your adjusting topside adjustments for your intercompany elimination entries. Okay, so I am done with intercompany eliminations. I am now going to process my minority interest, which is the last part of the financial consolidation process. I just have one task here. We just have to post the minority interest through equity method, and it will just show all of the transactions that has minority interest stake. So when I click on it, it shows a form that creates minority interest. Okay, that creates minority interest, and then the equity method recognition entries based on the minority interest trees. So for entities which are in the consolidated entities, so this one, the recognition of the minority interest income will be applied to one expense, which is a debit, and the liability, which is a credit. Now for entities which are not in the consolidation tree, or which are the minority interest or the NCI entities, the recognition will be on an asset, which is a debit, and a revenue, which is a credit, or it's under an income. So this report actually shows the result of the rules that we run when we did the minority recognition rule in your data warehouse. So I'm done with all of my financial consolidation process. I'm just gonna go ahead and okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and present it to the board, because I don't want to I need to present it to the board for the consolidation presentation. Just like what Scott did a while ago, he used archives. So I just can click on the consolidation presentation and then show playlist. You don't need to, well, a typical Philippine setup is that you have to, all of these are in Excel sheet, right? So you have to consolidate all of the data from your Excel sheet and then put it in a nice PowerPoint presentation. But if you have something like Solver, you can just report off your consolidation reports directly from Solver. So I can start my presentation with like a table of contents, which can also double as your agenda for the day. And you can show them all of the reports that you did. Like if you have a report that says cross-company benchmark, which would detail all of the highlights on a per company or a per entity, it will show you the revenue, the gross margin, the net income. This one's perfect for consolidation companies. And you can have variety of P&L reports like this one. So you have your P&L year on year. That is also on a per entity level. You can choose to report for one company. You can also choose for the subsidiary, or you can also report on a per business venture, or you can altogether report in a consolidated financial statements. And then, as Scott has said, and accountants are very happy with this, every time we do a demo of Solver, you can actually drill down information from your reports up to your general ledger detail. So depends on your level of granularity required. We can drill down specific information up to a certain module. Okay. Then you can also present your balance sheet. This is the usuals, and then you can present your cash flow statements, and you can present it on a consolidated basis, or you can actually present it on a per company. And you can also plug in your information on the exchange rate, because if you're operating in a different currency environment, you'd want to know what is the impact of the average rate to my financial statements. So this one is a good presentation to the board for them to decide on what to do when it comes to your exchange rates on currency translations. So this concludes the steps for the intercompany process. I did pretty much the financial consolidation process, and I presented it to the board. So now I can rest, and then I can proceed with my life doing another financial consolidation for the next coming period. Okay, Scott, you want to?
That's great, Ivy. Yeah, I think that's a really good tour of that consolidation process and how it all comes together. Right. So yeah, great stuff. And Luke, we've touched on a couple of areas here within the solution, but as you know, Ivy, there's so much more to it, right?
Yeah, we just scratching the surface, right?
That's it. We scratched the surface. And again, there may be aspects of what we've shown you today that are not applicable to your organization. You don't have to do everything. I said that at the start. So if you just want to simply do your financial reports off of your ERP, then you have a very simple environment. That's great. Yeah, we can certainly help you out with that, all the way through to some of the more complex budgeting, forecasting, and of course the financial consolidations that Ivy mentioned. So we got you covered from that perspective.
Right. So now we're open to the most exciting part, which is Q&A. I've seen some questions in here.
Yeah, and I must admit, Ivy, and I jumped the gun a bit, and I've actually been pulling the trigger on a few replies as we've gone through. Okay. But we had some really good questions coming through.
Okay, but we have a poll results, and I think it's nice to share it to them. The answer for my key challenges are 45% voted on budgeting, forecasting, and 23% voted on financial console, 35% on reporting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A good spread.
And okay, so any other questions that are left answered?
Well, there was a couple in there that I answered them on I couldn't help myself. I answered them on email, but I think it's worth just sharing those answers with perhaps some of the other people on the call. Is that a good idea, Morris?
Yes. So if we may share the answers to the questions of Rachel, Kienza, and Maria Juvie.
Yeah. So there was some great questions in and around budgeting and forecasting. One of the ones that came through was a question around how we get the actuals into Solver and whether they need to be manually imported. The answer to that, of course, is that we use our connectors. So to expand on my written response, if you're using a Dynamics application, whether it's Business Central or Acumatica or whatever it may be, we would use our Acumatica connector. We would determine what information we need to bring in from that finance system. So GL detail, maybe AP, AR, depending on what you need. And we would have that be brought into the Solver environment on a scheduled basis. So we could say every 4 hours, we want the Solver Cloud environment to connect in with your finance system, Acumatica, for instance, and bring across the latest data. If it's payroll that you also want to bring in, that could be a little different. Maybe you only do 1 or 2 pay runs a month. At which point, to keep things simple, we would just have our solution automatically pick up a CSV file once or twice per month, depending on your needs. So the idea is, doesn't matter what it is, the process is automated so that you're always working with the latest actuals within your environment. And then that flows on to another question we had around how many versions can you store? Well, you can store unlimited versions. That's the great thing about it. Unlimited versions of a budget or forecast securely within the data warehouse. And yes, you can then use that for your scenario planning and what if analysis. Okay, and there's full versioning, so you can keep track of what version you need to refer back to, and was it edited, and who edited it, etc., and what date. All of that stuff is available. Was there anything else I missed there? I think there might have been one more, Morris, right? Maybe around assumptions. Yeah, I think Marjuvi asked a question around assumptions. What happens if you make any changes to assumptions within the environment? Well, assuming you have the security rights, if you do go in and make changes to those assumptions, they will automatically flow through to that budget or forecast template. So you can do them on a global, subject to security, of course. But you can also, again, if you want the setup to be configured this way, make changes on the fly as well within the actual form. Okay. Anything else coming through, guys?
Yeah, any more questions from our participants?
So I think we have a recipient of the notebook. Somebody won. So Miss Rachel Marie Atienza and Mom Juvie Vargas, you will have the limited edition Moleskine Infosoft notebook. Yeah, just leave us your email address or your contact numbers so we can mail it to you or we can deliver it to you. Thank you very much for asking questions. Any other Maurice flowing in?
None so far, but we still have some time. Still have 10 minutes to entertain more questions from the audience.
We were ahead of time, Ivy. That's good going. I was
3:30.
Yeah. Well, I was rushing through that last part. I thought we might go over, but we did okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Although if you can't think of any question right now, you can send us an email. Have you flashed our emails?
Yeah. You can reach us through marketing@infosoft.com.ph if you have any clarification, if you have any questions or concerns. Email us through that email address, or you can call us via landline, 8866-8080, or visit our website, www.infosoft.com.ph. And please don't forget to like us in Facebook and LinkedIn, Infosoft Consulting Corporation. So, Maurice,
you can also send a direct email to me, to those that I've invited via email. So you can do so.
Right.
That would be all.
Okay. So I guess there's no more questions flowing in. So this is the part where we appreciate for you for taking off a bit of your time this afternoon. I'm going to show my face again. Yes. We appreciate you for taking off a bit of your time this afternoon to join us. Scott, do you have anything more to say? Say bye-bye in Filipino.
Oh, yeah, putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
I'll skip over that. Because I haven't been traveling, as you know, I'm usually in the Philippines a lot, but with this COVID situation, I haven't been there for a while. So my Tagalog's a little shaky. Usually it's quite fluent. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. As Ivy said, thanks for taking the time out. We know you've all got day jobs and you're probably very busy, so we appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you, Ivy, Morris, Jason, and the team at Infosoft. If you have any questions on Solver, I'm always happy to help, but I can tell you the guys at Infosoft, you're in good hands. They'll be able to help you with anything on that front. So thank you very much again.
All right. So thank you, everyone, and see you in our future webinars. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.